Welcome to Advanced TV Herstory. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams. This is the place where we connect the dots of TV and feminism to American culture and politics. It's a 3 o'clock, so I just need to get the car back by 1. So if I'm leaving here
We'll talk fast.
We'll talk fast.
Okay. All right.
All right.
By the way, you have great hair.
Oh, thank you.
Can I take these?
Yeah, all of it.
I didn't know who else was coming.
It's just you.
Okay.
It's just you. Yes. I got it from both sides, and it's all still natural and is getting whiter. These are my receipts. This is all real. And I will never I'm doing nothing to my face, because if my face isn't genuine, then everybody's going to go, well, what's with the hair? So,
You know what? You just do whatever you want.
that's what I think.
You do you. That's all.
That's right.
Hair, face, whatever. And I'm not contagious. I'm just getting over a bit of a.
You've been traveling.
And I came home and got a nasty upper viral infection, which I'm good now. And then I gave it to my mother, who came down. Isn't that nice of me? I'm so sorry. And so every once in a while I have a little cough or whatnot.
That's okay.
But there's nothing.
This is edited, and we did Beth Sullivan yesterday, and she dropped a couple of F-bombs, but
I will temper that. I will temper that.
Yeah,
Not that I haven't dropped my own share.
Right. And you've got some good stories that are worthy of F-bombing. Anyway, did you get water?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. All right.
I did. So I remember reading what you said in the email, but you know what?
Oh.
We're just going to punt.
Yeah. Well, we're going to punt. We're going to...
You just ask me whatever, and we'll swing.
Yeah.
I'm easy.
I'll probably do a separate intro. So I'm just going to say it's an honor for me to be at the Beverly Hills Public Library in the little corner of this thing called the Paley Center Archive, the Paley Center for Media, which I've also been to in New York. Did an entire episode about it because it's a fascinating place. I'm putting in this plug here because I'm also sitting with Stepfanie Kramer, who you might know her best as tough-minded detective Dee Dee McCall from TV's Hunter, 1984 to 1990. And if you are too young to have watched it when it first aired, maybe you, like my kids, watched it with their grandmother after school. But that is not to say that Hunter has its own place in TV herstory, and Stepfanie Kramer has put it there as the co-star of Hunter. But her training was from the American Academy of Dramatic Arts West. This is a woman who will sing mezzo, soprano, and knock your socks off. And I encourage you to go to her website. We'll plug that at the end. It's also in the show notes. She's got at least 2 albums for purchase, probably has more projects in the works, because Stepfanie will strike you as somebody who is not slowing down, but in fact is fine-tuning all of her gifts and talents. So without further ado, let's get talking to Stepfanie Kramer and welcome her to Advanced TV Herstory. Welcome, Stepfanie.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here with you.
Stepfanie.
And I love the fine-tuning thing.
Aren't we
all? Wait a minute. Okay, we've decided we're going to finish each other's sentences.
Stepfanie was most gracious earlier this summer, helping me and my writing colleague answer some really important questions about the role of Dee Dee McCall on Hunter and some situations that Dee Dee found herself in as a plainclothes police detective. And, it's an entire genre. Some of the conversation we're going to have today gets back into Hunter, but we're also going to talk about what it meant to be a woman on a successful TV series in the 80s. They were challenging times, I hear.
Aren't they always?
Hunter has a place in the world. I was just having a conversation yesterday. Americans who don't travel much or don't interact with people who are from other countries don't understand how American TV is such a worldwide phenomenon. Explain a little bit more about Hunter, which has now been off the air for 35 years. Why are you still recognized?
Beats me. No, that's the power of television, truly. And you said it in terms of the international market. It's relevant in America as well. There is something about being in a television set in someone's home. If you are in your home and you are watching a show, there is a sense of it's not real, but it's an energetic familiarity. and people connect at a different way, I think, than they do if they go into a theater. And perhaps that's because when you're watching television, you're in your intimate space. You're
in your pajamas.
Aren't we always?
Eating dinner.
Yes. I love my pajamas. And whatever. And you got your dog and your kids or whatever. And it creates a different kind of envelope for the process to be shared. And for whatever reason, you never know what show's going to hit. You never know if it's going to be a success or it's going to fizzle out or whatever. But that show became a true international success. And people still to this day love it. And by the way, when you're saying you watched with your grandmother or whatever.
My kids watched it with my mother.
With your mother. Okay. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on Tubi. It's on Get TV. It's on all these different streaming platforms. And I didn't know that until fans told me that. And now there is another generation of viewers.
And they all show up at the fan.
Yes, they do.
The
Comic-Cons.
Yeah, the Comic-Cons. But it strikes me that this is a totally new way, by virtue somewhat of the internet, for your fans of all ages. Tell me a little bit about who comes up to you at these major events across the country.
So many people, so many men and women and families. I often will get men that they come up and then the first thing they say is, I'm in love with you. Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry. And what was your name? That's always kind of like what? You don't even know me. What? But they think they do, of course. And then the thing that I found surprising back starting in the 80s and continuing all through the 90s, 2000s, and now here we are, 2025, is the amount of women who will stop me in like a supermarket or an airport or a department store or something. And certainly at the shows, the Comic-Con gatherings. And they will say things to me that are so surprising and even humbling when they go, "You changed my life." And I'm thinking, what? What do you mean? And then they tell me these stories that are so profound and so heartfelt and really powerful. There was a woman at the Comic-Con just recently who came up, a lovely lady. She came over and said, "I drove 800 miles to meet you today." And I'm thinking, holy cow, should I
just flew from Minneapolis.
Some gasoline or something? I mean, that's got to. And she said, "I became an attorney because of you." And it wasn't me, of course. It was the role that I played and how it resonated back to whomever was watching. I think in that part, it was like holding up a mirror to women in particular to say, look, you can do this too.
It was the tail end of the baby boom that was just coming out of college, trying to find their way. And maybe it was the fact that their mothers were also watching this too. And that in those mid-'80s, and we'll talk a little bit about what the other shows were at the time, because you were in the middle of a lot of, air quotes, strong female characters. There was a band of you all, and you carried the way. Why did they even exist? Well, you have to sort of look back 7 or 8 years to Title IX and to the ERA, the push for the ERA. And when the ERA fizzled, for lack of a better phrase, in 1981 and 1982, that the handwriting was on the wall, there was still enough momentum coming through Hollywood and enough talented women such as yourself, who they all realized there's money. There is money bringing these characters forward.
Yeah.
And Dee Dee McCall lived so many different challenges.
Yes, indeed.
They did. There was nothing that you couldn't do and that they put you through.
Truly. Believe me, I remember. And how many times they made me into a prostitute. And it was like, guys, can we come up with something a little more inventive, please? And it was guys, of course.
It was.
As male writers.
It was.
And they thought, well, let's just, I think she looks kind of cute in that whatever. And you're like, seriously?
And it wasn't even original at that point.
No.
Because Charlie's Angels had done that 8 years earlier.
Yeah.
And Policewoman had done it 12, 13 years earlier. Yeah.
They all do.
In the 70s, it was a bit of a novelty. It was understood.
Right.
But by the time we got to the 80s, there should have been better material out there.
Well, and that repetition of me going undercover in that capacity was diminished, I think, pretty much after the first season, because it was like enough already with this.
Something tells me you were kind of a vocal participant.
Yes. It was called Enough Already with This. But the women coming up at the shows that just, this one lady came up, she's now a judge. She goes, I went into law and did this, and she came to thank me. And you're just so, I mean, it touches your heart. I don't know about you, but I've always felt that whatever we do in the world, God willing, it makes a positive difference.
Yes. We continue to pay it forward.
Yes.
And continue to honor the ones in the past. And just as you were talking about the fact that you inspired women to go into law or perhaps into law enforcement, that goes all the way back to Hill Street Blues, actually. Betty Thomas as Lucy Bates and Veronica Hamill as Joyce Davenport. There is a quantifiable surge of women entering law enforcement, at least. And an early podcast episode, the one about Hill Street Blues from 2015 or 16, in fact, I got some feedback from a listener who said she went into law because of Veronica Hamill.
I've gotten so much of that. I went to a tribute with the LAPD. It was an anniversary of women in the force. I can't remember what the year was. All the women came up to me. They asked me to come as a guest, and they all said, I became a police officer because of you.
Yep.
Like, really?
That's amazing.
It is amazing. Yes. I mean, I don't walk around thinking that or carrying that. And so I'm always surprised, but it's a wonderful surprise.
We did not have the word representation. Did we see ourselves in TV? And we as white women, certainly, I saw lots of white women in TV. I could be anything I wanted to be, but we couldn't still quite put the finger on why it was important. Persons of color, women of color in particular, it just took forever for them. And even still, they are underrepresented. But now we know what that word means. We know why it's important. The people who crunch the numbers understand why it's important. And up until the internet and cable, things are so decentralized that people can get their programming however and wherever they want to see it. Right. So it was a bit of a missed opportunity. But in that moment of the mid-'80s, you and others did inspire women to take on the causes that, for at least a period of time, made the world a better place.
Yes, nicely put.
Yes. And so, Hunter, your co-star, and I would say he started with you, Fred Dreyer, and he had been a football player.
Yes.
And it was sort of created around him. Do you recall kind of?
I don't recall it was actually created around him.
Okay.
No. It was originally called, Frank Lupo wrote it, and it was originally called Hunter and McCall. And as they progressed forward with casting, et cetera, and the network said, we can't use that name because we had another show that you created on NBC called Hardcastle and McCormick, and people will get confused. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, right.
Brian Keith is.
Yeah. I know. You kind of go, what are you talking about? Whatever. So they decided on that one name. I recall he was cast first, and then there were a number of women that came in to audition, and then callbacks, and then you do the finals at the studio and at the network, and et cetera. And the part was written for someone who was like 10, 12 years older than me. So my agent said, just go in and wear a lot of makeup and do your hair and like put on whatever I put on. I don't remember, look older. And I always came off as older anyway. It worked, thank God. And here we are. I mean, I can remember being like 14 years old, maybe at home. And my brother was watching a football game. And he said, hey, come over here and I want to show you something. Yeah. I think it was the Rams. Goes, look at this. See this game? And I'm thinking, yeah, I wasn't really into football. He goes, this guy right here is great. I go, well, who's that? His name is Fred Dreyer.
Oh, wow.
I said, okay. Like, that meant nothing to me. I didn't want, I was a 14-year-old kid.
Right.
And then I wound up growing up and working on a show with him. The irony.
It was the time, the 80s. I'll put some books in the show notes of if you're really interested about this. But if you start thinking about Reaganism and the Reagan impact on what we have today and the masculinity and how masculinity has evolved, and some would say that it's gone in either a toxic way or that it's gone in a weak way. But you had a lot of masculinity on primetime during the 80s with Magnum PI and Knight Rider and Simon & Simon and Hardcastle and McCormick.
There was a lot of testosterone.
Yes. Yeah. And Miami Vice. And, and it just, if you were a 40 to 50-year-old man with a mustache and decent looking, you had a good shot. And I'm only talking about the ones that had multiple seasons. I'm not talking about the one-hit wonders.
Right.
So, you had these women who were just sort of peppered throughout an entire decade trying to be strong, credible, realistic. There was not a lot of fantasy in those. This is post Charlie's Angels. And I just think that women were hungry enough, women of all ages were hungry enough to see that they just laser, boom. And I'm going to watch her, I'm going to watch them. The beauty of your being with me today, your showing up at Comic-Cons and being able to engage with fans is that you were so young that this show that's now been off the air for 35 years, you still have a lot of energy to connect with people and hear their stories.
Oh, yeah, I do. I mean, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful I did the show. I know people say this, but truly, I'm grateful to the fans. And it's a profound journey.
What was that experience like, during an entire season of shooting? What was a day like for you?
Long, tough. It was demanding. I always used to say, week after month after year, it exacts its pound of flesh. There is no time for anything else. You're totally laser focused on this job, which takes everything out of you. So there's nothing left for anything else. So in that sense, it's very imbalanced. And that was a difficult part of my life for that period of time because I didn't have the balance that anybody should have in their world.
14-hour days, 16? How long?
Yeah, like 16-hour days, yeah. And then, of course, sometimes there's press on weekends or when the season was over, we shot 22 back to back. And so when it was over, boy, I slept or I'd travel somewhere. I needed to move my energy someplace. Occasionally I would do a movie, but for the most part, I needed downtime just to recoup body, mind, and spirit. But it was very demanding, but I came from theater. So memorizing was and still is relatively easy for me. Not to mean that I haven't flubbed a line. God knows I have and still do. But that was just like I had already trained to work fast and repetition. That's the thing. Television is incredibly fast. If you're working on a film and if you have the grace of a rehearsal period, meet the cast ahead of time, meet the director, get to know each other, that's wonderful. Television, you don't get any of that. You show up and you deliver. Some of my longest, most toughest monologues were delivered literally at 6 a.m. on the first shot. That was your first shot. So that means you got there at 4. So that kind of a schedule.
And with your hair and your makeup.
Hair, God. Yes, I know.
It was the 80s.
It was the 80s. That's all I can say. It was the 80s. And the shoulder pads that came out of your ears and stuff. The thing that was hard about it is trying to keep your energy focused to be true to the integrity of the character you're being. Because often we'd get different writers that would come through. They'd write something, and maybe it was a good script, but you'd read the scene and go, no, she wouldn't do this.
And you had developed.
Yes.
You had developed to the nth Dee Dee McCall and what her life was like. Is that correct?
Yes. And so it was like, we'd say, no offense to whoever the writer, but she would never say this, okay? And then I'd rewrite it. And we did, both Fred and I did that a lot. I'm sure they probably were not pleased with us initially, but that became sort of an integral collaborative energy. Sometimes we'd get things, we'd look at it, we'd time a scene and we're losing the light. We have no time to do this scene. We can't pick it up later. Okay, we're going to re-edit. We'll do this. Hit the high points, give it to the script supervisor. It times out right. Let's go. Shoot. You have to make it work. And then we also improvised, Fred and I. A lot of the banter and the silliness back and forth and the jokes and things like that. That was just improvising, which makes it fun. And also we had cameras, other than when we had handhelds, that was one thing. But we had them on sticks, And one thing that always bothers me when I'm watching something, I mean, I've adjusted my mind and my eyes to it because it's everywhere. It's a plethora of constant cameras moving. It's like, is your script so bad that you have to constantly move the frame to keep people focused. It makes me crazy. But that's just me. That's just my little pet peeve.
If you're a connoisseur of TV, as I'm guessing you are, listeners, because you're listening to this podcast, we have watched it all evolve. We all get to pick and choose now because we have so much opportunity. But if you're looking for something from the 80s and want to see sort of the development of the woman police officer, without Dee Dee McCall, you don't have Olivia Benson. And some would argue that Chris Cagney, Mary Beth Lacey, and Dee Dee McCall are all sort of one class because they were from the same time period. Very different shows, though. Very different. And Dee Dee didn't get to have a woman to banter with much.
No.
So you had Policewoman grew out of Police Story, which was a very serious anthology series. And in 1974, they had Angie Dickinson play, for just a single episode, a policewoman. And it evidently resonated well. It had a good feeling when they were producing it. And boom, she was offered a role, a show built around her. And they originally were going to have Bert Convy be her partner, which Bert Convy from, Tattletales, I believe, is his series.
Right connection.
But he had been in Police Story, and instead they cast Earl Holliman, and it was a very good balance, a good chemistry between the two of them.
He's a good actor.
The ribbing that Angie Dickinson has taken from decades of feminism now, though, is that she did not have the agency as a police officer to fight back, to get herself out of trouble, to fire a gun, to whack somebody with a board. I mean, she kind of had to be the victim because she was the only woman to be seen anywhere.
Yeah, that certainly wasn't Dee Dee.
And right. And I watched some Policewoman, and she's doing the best she can.
Sure.
And that's the grace that we as 21st century feminists need to remember when we are being critical about women who were doing their jobs, whatever their job was, in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s. They were doing the best they could. They didn't have too many role models to work with, and they were being directed by men. They didn't want to lose their job. They knew if they put up too much of a fuss, they were going to be labeled difficult to work with.
You know, when you said directed by men, in the 7 years of the show, we never had one female director except for me. I know. Isn't that just pathetic?
You had incredible stamina, and you were put through your paces as Dee Dee McCall. Before we talk about your premier feminist moment, you left the show with one season to go, correct?
Right.
And that was partly because you had started a family?
No, not yet.
Okay.
You know, I'm the kind of person where I do recognize when something comes to a close, I honor that for whatever the reasons. And it was time for me to move on, to go to the next phase of my life, both professionally and personally. And personally, I was going to be married, and I knew I wanted a child. And I couldn't work those tremendously demanding hours. I choose not to work those hours and be a mother.
Sure.
Now, some women do, or they have a fleet of nannies or whatever. But I wasn't the kind of mom who wanted to get that phone call that says, here's a video of them taking their first steps. Oh, wonderful.
Right.
I mean, that's just not me. And I'm not judging anybody. It just didn't work for me. Plus, I went off to record an album in London, and I went off to do a couple of films. It was time for me to transition into a different place in my life as a woman.
And the confidence that you had after 6 very strong, successful seasons to go out on top, calling your own shot. It's not something everybody gets to do, but it was a gift that you recognized.
It was. And I know that there were some people, go, oh, well, you're crazy, walk away from all that money and all that. And you're not. And I said, you're judging my choice based on your desires and needs. You have no idea what mine are.
That was a very 80s and 90s thing to do, was to judge other people.
It's still going on. But yeah, so I went and did what I needed to do. But I'm very grateful I did the show. Very grateful. I mean, it changed my life in the most wonderful ways. Although it was very demanding and it could be very difficult, it could also be fun.
So listeners, as it turns out, Stepfanie Kramer is a bit of a badass, if you hadn't figured that out yet. As I was doing research for the book, and I am watching these important episodes of Hunter, and I'm watching this two-parter called Rape and Revenge. And it's without getting too far spoily, our Dee Dee McCall is sexually assaulted. It's a riveting performance. I encourage you to watch it. She was a lead character and you had grown to like her. Rape and Revenge happened early in Hunter. And then lo and behold, and I believe it's season 3, they want to do it again. And it was this 3-parter called City of Passion. Just that name is enough to make you go, who was in charge of this? And Stepfanie Kramer said no. And it wasn't just that you said no. You took out the equivalent, the Hollywood equivalent of a billboard. You sent it right up the flagpole.
Well, initially, it didn't. There was no flagpole. We handled that subject matter very well, I thought, in Rape and Revenge, that special 2-parter. And it got great ratings. I got some wonderful reviews and all of that stuff. And it was done well. Then we had a different producer come on board, a different exec. And he had optioned a book. And I didn't know that he had done that. And James Whitmore Jr. was one of our directors, one of my favorites. And he took me aside on the set and said, have you read the next script? I said, no. He goes, you need to read it, kid. He used to call me kid all the time. I said, why? He goes, they want to rape you again. I said, excuse me? What? He goes, yeah, you need to read this. So you have to understand that when we would be working, you'd finish an episode, let's say random Tuesday night at midnight. Okay. You would start the next episode at 6 a.m. on Wednesday. So it's not like you went home and you had a script and you read it and you dissected and you had dialogue, blah, blah. No, it's just bam, bam, bam. So I got the first AD to get me the script. I read it and I went, oh, we got a problem here. And we should not be doing this. And the producer, the exec at the time was Roy Huggins. And he goes, well, we're doing it because ratings and all that. I said, no, we already did this. Maybe you were not aware of that. And he dug in his heels. You're doing this or else. I go, or else what, man? What are you talking about? So it got to be one of those stalemates. And I went on some talk shows. And I remember Arsenio Hall. And I said, yeah, I don't. He said, you stood up for yourself. I go, we cannot continually victimize and violate with violence women over and over again just for ratings. Is just unacceptable. So after it kept getting down to the wire, my publicist, Susan Patricola, she called and she said, I think we're going to have to take this to the press. I said, okay. So she put out the story. Then it just went wildfire all over the U.S. And so many people, I don't know how many, so many thousands and thousands of people just stood up and said, we're with her. She's right. This is wrong. I mean, I'm distilling it down. And they gave in. I said, you can still beat her up, Yeah, right. Just don't rape her. Right. So that's what we wound up doing. And it was necessary. It was necessary to take that stand.
I think sometimes, I don't know this for certain, but I don't know that men appreciate how closely women watch this stuff, how closely women watch a character for her strengths and when there is something that isn't realistic. And so my Dee Dee McCall or your Chris Cagney is strong. She's already been tested A, B, C, all these different ways. She's not going to get stung again. She's going to shoot him. I mean, this is not even going to be 3 episodes. It's going to be 10 minutes into the first episode because he's gone. She's willing to put up with an internal affairs investigation. She's going to blow him away.
Yeah.
If the women had written the script, even dealing with a product that had been purchased, it would have been changed in some way. So I cannot thank you enough for standing up for, in what was probably, at least at the very beginning, a lonely argument to be made that you then found out, no, in fact, thousands of women were grateful because Dee Dee McCall should never have been put in that position again.
Going back to what it is we're showing on television at that time, constantly violating women, sexual violence. And it was just for ratings. I'm like, come on, guys, you got to be better than that.
It
was always guys, by the way.
It was always guys. And back in the day, the way that you found out what was on TV was in your Sunday newspaper. There was something called something like a TV Week, TV Weekly or something that had literally a 25-word description of what the plot was. Or you subscribe to TV Guide if your family had money.
TV Guide.
Yeah, that was fancy. And again, the same roughly, perhaps the exact same 20-word description. And lo and behold, and what I'm really learning is that these episodes that included a sexual assault, or in some cases molestation and there are some keywords that landed during sweeps months.
Always.
And in the end, in many cases, unlike what they wanted to put Dee Dee McCall through a second time across 3 episodes, which would have then been rape, 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 instead of assault, 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 it is literally a minute and a half of plot. But how did the TV Guide, perhaps a rapist is being sought or whatever, and wow, that's what people tuned in for, or that's what they thought people would tune in for. And it's violence against women. And we are perhaps more accustomed to it. But on the other hand, the importance of rape and revenge and the trauma and the mental processing that the writers of that episode had you go through and your acting skills educated all of us. So how did we all learn about rape? We saw it on TV.
Yeah. And that rape and revenge 2-parter was handled really well in the aftermath of being in the hospital and the photographs and all of that stuff they do. So dehumanizing. And to take a woman that's already been victimized in such a terrible way and then so vulnerable and then constantly being in their face with it. And it's a horrible thing.
It is a horrible thing. And the time capsule that you have by virtue of your remote and all of your subscriptions to streaming, you could say, wow, Dee Dee McCall, 1985, 86, this is horrible. You can actually dial it back because rape kits and how to work with rape victims, rape survivors, was actually part of Policewoman. It took 10 years for people in hospitals and law enforcement and women developing rape crisis centers to finally get the protocols that in the mid-'80s still look a little weak compared to what we now expect today. And now we find out that rape kits are just sitting in warehouses, untested and unworked. But that's another conversation for another day. Oh, that got really dark, but I'm glad we did it because I'm here at the Paley Media Library in the Beverly Hills Public Library, beautiful sort of civic campus that they have here.
It is nice, isn't it?
And yes, and it's a beautiful Friday morning, and I'm with Stepfanie Kramer, who walked away from Dee Dee McCall as a winner, took all of these stories, took an incredible worldwide fan base, and also took her love of music and her musical talents. So since Dee Dee McCall, you continue to sing, you continue to perform. What have the last few years been like for you?
Well, the last few years, I haven't really been singing and performing that much. I mean, when COVID came, we all sat at home and went la-ti-da, la-ti-da, What was that, 2 years? I mean,
It was.
Okay.
Lost years.
And then coming out of that, you suddenly didn't know how to swim and you're sticking your toe in the water. So I think that changed all of humanity, really, and changed me certainly as well as everybody else. And I'm still acting. Actually, I'm putting together my own podcast. And it's called The Other Side with Stepfanie Kramer. And it's in the preliminary stages. But I'll be interviewing people who are individuals who are experts in their fields of all things unexplained, so to speak.
Cool.
The paranormal, the supernatural, UFOologists, numerologists, astrologers, psychics, mediums, healers, all of the stuff that I've been interested in my entire life. And so that's like something that is going to be a lot of fun for me to do, to be sure.
Absolutely. We have the technology to deliver these kinds of shows. And listeners, it's because of you that I keep doing this and getting the opportunity to meet somebody like Stepfanie Kramer. We are more connected today than we've ever been.
Isn't that the truth?
So when anybody tells you that they're lonely or they're isolated, all you need to do is look around and say, what am I interested in? And those people will find you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we need to stay together. We need to connect our humanity.
We need community.
Yes.
We do. We need energetic community. I did a one-woman show. I was touring around with that, and I represented America down in Mexico at a big international music festival. That was fun because everybody was from a different country singing their own songs, like Danish songs. It's like, wow. I mean, it was just everybody. It was just great. I had a blast. And the one album that I still want to do is actually a Christmas album.
We need some fresh Christmas songs.
I love Christmas, and I love Christmas music. I'm that weird person that plays it in June. I'm like, you walk in the house and go, why am I listening to Silver Bells and it's July 4th? Because I love Christmas music, So that's one thing that's in my head down the road.
The market is there. And the market is also at Stepfanie Kramer's website, where she has her 2 CDs for sale. Don't just go and find her on Pandora. Go ahead, get the CD. We're talking about the American Songbook.
Yeah, the first one was One Dream, and that's filled with 7 original songs, and then there's some covers of material that I'd always loved, and it's more of an adult contemporary. Then the Great American Songbook was recorded live in a club, and they asked me, if you do your show here, can we record it? And you can put it out. And I thought, why not? So put together a fabulous trio, and it is live. I mean, you can hear it. There's no skewing of tonalities. Let's go back in and blend this or remix. No, it just is what it is. But it was such a great show and so much fun. And I love that music. My father was a classical violinist. I grew up with a lot of music in my home all the time. So I was always singing or listening to music, and I still do.
And it is that music, as well as television, that connects us as Americans and connects we Americans with the rest of the world.
I get so much information from people overseas, Asia and Europe, Australia, saying, I love this song or I love that. It's wonderful to connect with people that way.
Oh, my heart is full right now, listeners. What a cool experience to be hanging out here with Stepfanie Kramer, talking about 80s TV, women in TV. It just can't be celebrated enough. These series are important. They are part of who we are today, believe it or not, and what we see on TV today, because we wouldn't have TV where it is without the women who were in the roles, and then the women who were starting to emerge as scriptwriters, and then ultimately directors. By the time you hit the 90s, it's a different ballgame entirely.
That's right.
But there's no question that the 80s should be taken more seriously than they are, and we have some very important women characters who represent that. Stepfanie Kramer, we are grateful for all of that you did, all of those 16-hour days. And that you're still around and want to talk about it with all of us at Advanced TV Herstory.
Oh, thank you. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. We could keep going with this like episode 2 and 3. We have so much we could talk about in regards to all of it.
There will be more information in the show notes. You all are Why I Podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams. Go to paleycenter.org for more information about the Paley Media Center presence in both Beverly Hills, California, as well as Midtown Manhattan. Learn more about Stepfanie Kramer, her incredible career, what she's got going on now, and her 2 albums at thestephaniekramer.com. Many thanks to Mary Lou Morose, who was the audio editor on this episode, and, as always, our music and jingle provided by Jazzer, the song Take Me Higher, which can be found at freemusicarchive.org. Many, many thanks to you for listening.